So this is Diesel We the People News. Now, this is a court, and I was kind of digging into some of these courts, and maybe you guys can help me out because I'm not a know-it-all. I'm an idiot. Okay, I'm just an average man trying to figure things out in life, just like the rest of us. So, I've never been on parole, probation, or anything like that. So, since I have no experience in it, I have questions. Maybe you guys have answers. But I also found flaws in this that maybe you guys can help me or not. Alrighty? And there's a catch-22.
Harold, are you ready with Mr. Barney?
Ready, Your Honor.
Are you ready? Court will call cause number B19-792, State of Texas versus Bradley Barney, for purposes of an agreed plea with said parties.
Thanks, ready. Next is ready, Your Honor.
First document we need to go to is the joint request for sentencing or plea by video conference. Mr. Barney, do you have any objections to proceeding by video conference?
No, sir.
Court. Next document we need to go through is the 3914 Discovery Disclosure Compliance Form. Discovery Disclosure Compliance Form, which purports to have each of your signatures, counsel. Each of you recall signing that document?
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor.
To the best of your knowledge, has the state received all discovery from law enforcement and forwarded the same to the defense?
Yes, sir.
To the best of your knowledge, have you received all the discovery?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Barney, I'm going to show you a document entitled Defendant's Plea of Guilty, Waivers, and Admonishments. Did you have an opportunity to go through that document with your attorney?
Yes, sir.
Did you understand that document?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand that you have a right to a trial by jury?
Alright, let's nitpick this just a little bit. Okay? Now, the understanding part, every time they ask you to understand, is because they want you under bondage of their terms. Okay? And that's the reason why a few videos back I say overstanding. I never understand nothing. Once you understand, then you're in bondage with them. No matter of the definitions they use, you say you understand their definitions.
Yes, sir.
Do you understand you have a right for your attorney to cross-examine the state's witnesses and to call your own witnesses?
Yes, sir.
And do you understand you have a right to appeal?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand that you're waiving all three of those rights today?
Yes, sir.
In addition to that,
Now, get this. Alright, so you understand you're waiving all the rights. Yes, sir, I do. Well, in addition to this, he didn't even finish. But he wanted an answer of that you understand that you waived all your rights. And then they added something after that. Automatically already.
you understand that you have a right to remain silent. Nobody can require you to testify against yourself, but you can in fact waive that right.
Yes, sir.
Page 3 of this document purports to have your signature in 2 different locations. Is that your signature in both spots?
Yes, sir.
Your second signature appears below.
Okay, so they asked for a signature, but the judge just let him know that even with waiving his rights, he still doesn't have to testify against himself. But what did they just have him do? They asked him if that was his signature, and he said yes. He testified against himself. Alright? And this is what you call nitpicking, right? And most people don't even think about it because it's just a conveyor belt, right? And it's become habits with everybody because nobody questions nothing, right? But at this point in time, the judge already let him know that he can, he don't have to testify against himself. Even after all these waivers, he still has the right not to testify against himself. And the first thing they did is ask him if this is his signature. This is the point where he should have said, I don't want to testify against myself.
Paragraph entitled Judicial Confessions and Stipulations. Do you understand that by signing this paragraph, it's just like you stood up here before the court, raised your hand, and said, I did what the state's accused me of doing?
Yes, sir.
Attest.
Okay, so the state accused him. Now, I understand that legalese and people's got had different opinions and all that. But Mr. State of Texas does not exist because it's a thing. So Texas cannot complain. Now, I know it's nitpicking, y'all, but when you're in courts, that is the time to ask questions. Do not give answers and get the full understanding or overstanding of what's going on around you. Who's this Mr. Texas making these claims?
The back of this document is a copy of the grand jury indictment that purports to have your signature on it.
Yes, sir.
And are you asking the court to accept as true and correct this grand jury indictment?
Yes, sir.
Do you feel like your client understands his rights, waivers, and admonishments?
I do, Your Honor.
Mr. Barney, you've been charged with possession with intent to deliver a controlled substance, to wit methamphetamine, from 4 to 200 grams. This is a first-degree felony with a range of punishment of 5 to 99 years or up to life and a $10,000 fine.
Okay. I don't really know what 200 grams is, okay, to be honest with you. I never dealt within the guidelines of selling or really buying a whole lot of drugs in my lifetime. But the problem I have right here, there is no victim, and he's looking at between 5 to life in prison. Okay? That is just too broad. That is just too open of a scary thing. Even if you decide to fight it in court, the one thought that's going to be stuck in your head is I could still be looking at life in prison over a non-victim crime. And if I get lucky, you know, the judge would be having lenience over me and go 5 years. So I think they designed this on purpose to make it really scary so people do more pleads than actually fight. Alrighty? And because of this plea, he may get off pretty easily. Now, I'm not 100% for all pleas. I'm in for common law. And however, in common law, it's not a crime to sell drugs. Legalese, it's a crime. It's a non-victim crime, but apparently it's a crime. Okay? I'm a firm believer the state don't like it because they only want one drug dealer. And that's the government drug dealers. They don't want outside competition. Alright? But on my behalf on this right here, that's just too broad. State of Texas should be ashamed of themselves even bringing this up that many years of broadness over a non-victim crime. You know, Murderers don't even get that much. This is just ridiculous. And everybody wonders why prison's full of non-victim crimes. And the problem is, if he does go to prison, he's going to go to prison with hard criminals that actually harmed somebody. I don't know. Don't make sense to me.
You understand this charge and this range of punishment?
Yes, sir.
And how do you plead?
Yes.
Okay. Once again, we're going to go back into the simple fact that you do not have to testify against yourself. He just said it a little bit ago, right? So anytime he actually says, do you understand? I'm not going to incriminate myself.
Are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes, sir.
Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty and for no other reason?
Yes, sir.
And are you a citizen of the...
That's the funny thing is that question right there is a trick question. Because innocent people has pleaded guilty because their attorneys directed them the wrong way. And they just did not want to fight.
United States?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Danford, do you feel like your client's competent and capable of assisting you in preparation for trial?
He is competent and he's been able to assist me, Your Honor.
Is there a plea agreement?
Wait a minute.
Yes, Your Honor. 10 years deferred adjudication.
Let's stop there. So the judge asked his lawyer if he was confident. Okay. So is he some type of psychiatrist, some type of doctor to actually be able to testify on his behalf on that? I understand he's a lawyer. But is he a doctor with a law degree? See my point?
No early termination, $2,500 fine, drug and alcohol treatment approved by the probation department, completion of the LTIP, and restitution to the crime lab for $180.
Mr. Danford, is that your understanding of the plea agreement?
It is, Your Honor.
Mr. Barney, is that your understanding of the plea agreement?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me.
And let's talk about deferred adjudication. Do you understand that deferred adjudication is like a two-sided coin? If you successfully complete all the terms and conditions of probation, not only do you not have a final conviction, but you may be entitled to file a motion for non-disclosure. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do you understand the flip side of the coin? If you violate your terms and conditions of probation, you're subject to the full range of punishment.
Yes, sir.
In addition to that, do you understand that a plea agreement is an agreement between you and the state? It's not binding on the court, but if the court did not accept your plea agreement, you would have the opportunity to withdraw your plea of guilty, enter a plea of not guilty, and proceed to trial.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I do have one of my kids' friend that was in this predicament. Alright? So they did do a plea agreement of a couple of years. Alright? And I guess in all, I have not read over the case yet. I'm still waiting on that paperwork to kind of read over it. But there's two things in there, and they're looking at 16 years. Alright, so she got him and did a plea agreement of 2 to 3 years. However, the judge gave her 8 years. Okay, so the courts did not accept it. Now, when he goes to court, y'all, this is just a beginning part of it, right? The judge that he ends up seeing to get this all finalized does not have to accept the Texas agreement. Well, you signed all this contracts with them. So if the judge actually, like for her, and this is the way I'm looking at it, right? I have not went through and read it, but she ends up getting 8 years. Okay? Well, that plea agreement that she signed is null and void, because that plea agreement contract was never obligated. So technically she can fight because the judge did not accept it. So that a plea agreement is void. It's null and void. The trick is, and I think this is the reason why most people don't challenge it, and again, most people don't even probably dawn on this. In all actuality, an attorney's not going to give out information, right? That will actually help you. If she's looking at 8 years, and she decides to go ahead and take it to trial because the contract is null and void, which basically makes her the victim from the state now. Okay? Now, the state of Texas and the courts caused harm upon her. So they're putting people in jail for a non-victim crime, but the courts in the state of Texas actually created harm to another man and woman. There is actually a real victim because they did not follow through with the contract and with the pre-agreement. See what I'm saying? And if she decides to fight it, then they're going to add extra victim parts on her or him, right? In this case, it's a her. So if she decides to fight it, well, then she may go ahead and end up serving the whole 16 years out of retaliation of fighting it. So you're still stuck in a quandary of this trickery of courts bounding you into, forcing you into submission. We cannot have our slaves running free. We cannot have our slaves argue to us. We cannot have our slaves start demanding things without retaliation from us. In essence, that's what they're doing, right? So, backtrack a little bit. There's a contract. They all made agreement with this guy. I don't know what happened after this. But if the next part, he goes sees a judge and decides, well, you know, he's still going to do all these things, but he's also going to file 5 years. Well, that plea agreement is null and void. The contract's not fulfilled. Okay? So, the state of Texas has no business now. They're just wiped out. Gone. Alright? Courts took over, and they decided to do what they wanted to do. And since you pled guilty, they're just going to go ahead and press forward on this. However, if you argue, wait a minute, y'all, this contract's null and void, well, that judge is going to say, well, instead of 10 years, you're going to get 8 years. Okay? And just like if this guy argues, right? He don't know what he's walking into. I don't know if he's innocent or guilty or whatever. But if he fights this, and a jury, in the ignorance of the jury, because no juries, very rarely do they even know law, he may get life in prison. Well, that scares him into submission anyway.
And are you asking the court to follow the plea agreement?
Yes, sir.
The court will find evidence beyond reasonable doubt to enter a finding of guilt. Pursuant to your plea agreement, will defer, will defer any such finding of guilt for a period of 10 years. There's no early termination of probation. You'll have a fine in the amount of $2,500. You must successfully complete a drug and alcohol treatment program accorded by probation. You must successfully complete the Life Training Institute program. You have restitution in the amount of $180, court cost in the amount of $290, and reimbursement fees in the amount of $85. Do you have any questions on the judgment?
No, sir.
Okay, I may be wrong. I guess this could have been basically the sentencing part, so I may jump the gun on that behalf. So if this judge actually says, well, what I'm going to do is go ahead and tack on a couple of years of prison, then that contract would be void, null and void. All right. The judge took over and the state of Texas has nothing to do with it, and then he can appeal on this and all that, because the judge gone ahead and intervened in the contract, which technically, in contract law, he's not allowed to do. He's supposed to uphold the contract law. But just like the lady I was talking to you about a minute ago, that's exactly what the judge did, intervene in the contract, which lawfully, not legally, lawfully, the judge cannot do that because it is contract.
Attached to the back of the judgment is the order granting community supervision. Did you have a chance to go through that order with your attorney?
Yes, sir.
Did you understand that order?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand that order contains all your terms and conditions of probation?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand your terms and conditions of probation include a $60 per month probation fee,
Yes, sir.
a one-time $50 Crime Stoppers fee?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Do you understand you're subject to random urinalysis and drug test at your own expense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep going back to this very important thing. Every time he says yes, sir, after the judge asks questions, he is incriminating himself. He's bypassing his Fifth Amendment rights, which the judge actually says you still have that in contact. Of course, looking at 5 to 99 years, it's probably best to keep the mouth shut. But I'm just bringing that point up. All right?
Understand you're agreeing to a search of your person, your place, your residence, your vehicle, or any electronics to ensure conformance with the terms and conditions of probation. Did you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you signed that contract, you gave them permission to basically break into your house anytime, right? But the problem I have with that is, what about the wife and kids that live in that house? Because of him being on probation and gave up all his rights, led a side effect to his family giving up all their rights. Where's his family signing this a plea agreement? Okay? I have to say, even though they're married, we still have individual rights. Alright? Just because he lives there does not give the state permission to intervene in her individual life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. She is going to be stuck with 10 years without a contract with the state or with this judge. So this right here really galls me, because I can picture myself really being, if I was on probation and I agreed to their terms, but my wife had no say. What the hell, y'all? I don't know. That part right there, I understand it, okay, and I understand what they're doing. But the part that this gentleman right here, due to his plea, just sacrificed his family's rights, which goes back into what? Innocent. But now they're going to be innocent by association, so therefore they are just as guilty as he is. They're going to have a 10-year sentence, just with less restriction, but they can wake up at any given time and have somebody break in their house without a warrant and without them signing the contract. So they lost their rights just that quickly. Your family lost their rights.
Do you understand you must successfully complete the Life Training Institute program?
Yes, sir.
And you understand that if ordered by probation, you must successfully complete a drug and alcohol treatment program.
Yes, sir.
Incrimination.
Where do you work?
Hill Country Paving.
I'm
Incrimination.
sorry.
Hill Country Paving.
Incrimination.
Y'all are staying pretty busy, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Incrimination.
As a term and condition of probation, you have 175 hours of community service. Work with the probation department so they can work around your job, okay?
Okay.
Do you have any questions at all?
There is one thing I was going to make the court and probation aware of. Mr. Barney was born in Idaho and lived most of his life there. And he and his brother...
That part is not really important. Alright. Basically, if he's going to move to a different state, he's going to ask probation to move to another state. Really doesn't have to do with the state of Texas, according to the judge. It's up to the other state to go ahead and accept you and have a new probation officer up there and all this kind of crap. Alright. Which is weird because they're trading off jurisdiction and they're agreeing to all the same terms in a totally different jurisdiction. So that part right there is just weird because you got sentenced basically in one jurisdiction and now you're asking another jurisdiction to be a babysitter. Anyway, what do you guys think? Because a lot of this is kind of really nonsense, especially the very important thing is the side effect of your families losing their individual rights without signing a contract because of the term agreements that this guy just did. Now, I don't know if he's married or not, but we obviously know that there's married couples in the same situation. Okay? And the catch-22, if they get a divorce, and if he don't let the courts know, or the officers know, or the probation officers know, or whatever, that he moved out of that residence, well, they still break into their house when he hasn't lived there. This has happened in California. Alright? The guy's brother left 3 years prior. And the cops broke into his people's houses when he no longer lived there. But because it said on the paperwork that he lives there and was never changed, which I want to bring up to y'all's attention on that. If you find yourself in a situation and they leave, by God, go down to the probation offices or the cops or judges and let everybody know that he moved out to be able to restore your liberty back. They would now have to have a warrant to come into your house because that guy does no longer live there. Alright? You may have to sign some type of affidavit or something like that saying he does not live there, or she. I just say he because it's just more, well, you guys know how it is. It's mostly he's. Alright? Please, if they leave off your property, don't bank on them notifying that they moved and put a change of address. You let them know they left as soon as they leave. Alright? So your life and liberty and pursuit of happiness can begin. Whether you're married, whether it's your brothers, whether it's anybody. Okay? Diesel Weed People News. Bye, y'all.
The company, he works for his brother, the company we mentioned earlier, Hill Country Paving.